Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the WCW Saturday Night Review Series for the 11th of January 1992. Loving 1992. We have almost the whole year, or all that's here from the year anyway, available except for the 1 week before this. And we'll go back into 1991. We're eventually going to get all the way back to 1985. Man, old wrestling so much better than the just utter trash we have today. Anyhow, Marcus Alexander Bagwell and Steve Austin going at it. Austin has been your television champion, and you see them kind of going in a positive direction, kind of fighting each other off. Bit of a falls. Bagwell fighting back with a little bit of fire. Austin goes to the outside, stunning Steve. Is in a position of, I wouldn't say complete authority, but Paulie dangerously up on the apron, distracting the officials so that Austin can send Bagwell into the ringside steel post on the corner of the ring on the outside, and Austin continues to brawl, gouging, fish hooking, and otherwise trying to take care of Bagwell once and for all in a very simplistic way. Then we kind of see the nature of, kind of hitting a body slam and then hitting a couple of backbreakers. A little bit of awkwardness. Obviously, both guys relatively young, and Bagwell able to fight. Dangerous Alliance rushing the ring, attacking Bagwell. There is a WCW magazine segment where Harley Race promises that Lex Luger will in fact be the best thing to ever happen to WCW, and he's kind of talking about the future. The tailor-made man basically says that he is considering leaving the York Foundation. He's a tailor-made man. He doesn't need anybody's help, and he is a man unto himself. He also doesn't need the fans. According to Taylor himself, that's the way he feels about it. Then we move to back to the WCW magazine. Love these segments, hosted by Eric Bischoff, by the way. Bischoff, at the time, is just such a fun, loving Ken Dollish character. The Steiner Brothers up here next, and they are pretty willing to go in a positive direction towards the nature of a, kind of basic thing here. Kind of running through a pretty simplistic run there. The Steiner Brothers facing off against a couple of enhancement guys, nothing necessarily worth going out of your way to see here. Steiner's throwing guys around like, rag dolls and the like, but that's normal for the Steiner Brothers in this time, and the WCW or anywhere at that point. Rick and Scott Steiner defeating Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker and Pat Rose. Scott pins Parker with a Frankensteiner. A lot of punch kick, lots of basic stuff, and ultimately very squash-heavy run here in this particular version of WCW on this particular edition. Then we move to Big Van Vader against T.C. Carter. Vader being managed by Harley Race, although that alliance hasn't fully been fleshed out quite yet. That comes a little bit later, probably in about maybe a month or two, but Race does have an affiliation with Vader at the time, and I think it does help Vader because Vader really not known to the American audience until the 1991-92 time frame. Of course, he becomes, for that 92-93 time frame, probably the biggest heel in professional wrestling, and so Vader, dominating his adversary T.C. Carter, clotheslines, punches, kicks, basic maneuvers, and ultimately a modified choke slam and a powerbomb, and off we go into the Wild Blue Yonder. Vader really dominant here. Cactus Jack teaming up with Abdullah the Butcher. They seem to go back and forth here. Brian Pillman and friends and former, I believe, Pillman and Zink at the time, former U.S. Tag Team Champions. Not terribly sure on that because my WCW knowledge started in 1992, so certainly a bit of history lacking from 88 to 92. Cactus does the majority of stuff, also the majority of selling. Abdullah comes in and does what Abdullah does, basically punch, kick, and bloodlet. Nothing of major value to Abdullah, to be completely honest with you. I know a lot of people like the guy, but never a fan because he doesn't have long-term value. Flying Brian Pillman does a lot of selling for Cactus Jack, keeping Cactus on his toes, both literally and figuratively. And then we see a clothesline from Cactus, hitting to go there, and a really basic run. Uh, Z-Man Tom Zink managing to do what he can where he can, trying to choke out his adversary and managing to kind of get a sleeper hold on Abdullah, although it looks kind of goofy because of the. In a post-match, the team of the babyfaces are successful. However, Cactus and Abdullah end up going brawling into the seats, and we've seen that before. Nothing really new here. Then we see Jim Ross out there with the WCW Top 10. Johnny B. Bad makes his way out. Johnny B. Bad, a continual guy. And then we see Sting kind of promising that he's going to face off against Lex Luger at Super Brawl. Sting certainly a fan of kind of coming out and talking about being the world champion, going out there, being a future world champion, the betrayal of Luger and all of that. Then we see other baby faces, and Mark Bagwell gets endorsed as well. Bagwell basically endorsed as a guy that Sting is training and working with and trying to bring to a higher level of success here in WCW. Sting, of course, a former world champion, having the credibility with the fans to make that happen, at least in their mind. Then we move to another in the series of matches here, Johnny B. Bad in an enhancement match, which is about where he should be, not really ready to have major matches, but needs some ring time. His opponent for this particular day happens to be Mark Kyle, aka Killer Kyle of Smoky Mountain fame. Killer Kyle actually shows a bit of collegiate wrestling prowess, going after his adversary pretty simply here and ultimately getting him in a continual basis, as it were. And so, basic maneuvers and really basic things. Johnny B. Bad drop kicks under the chin, a couple of arm drags and other basic maneuvers. Johnny B. also doing kind of the bouncing around boxing gimmick. Also gets a win, and Mark Kyle catches him in the eye, but Johnny B. Bad says he's so pretty, no one better mess with him. Still doing the heel deal. I think he came in around Halloween Havoc 91. Tailor-Made Man, aka Terry Taylor, kind of breaking away from the York Foundation, not exactly thrilled with that run. Double chin crusher against his opponent here. The enhancement match for Taylor. Taylor obviously not running the best. Greg Sawyer, his opponent. And Taylor gets a pretty quick win with the forearm. Or the five-arm, actually, as he calls it. Ron Simmons with tag team champion Ricky Steamboat and Dustin Rhodes defeats Rick Rude, Arn Anderson, Larry Zbyszko with Folly Dangerously, and Medusa. 9:27. Rhodes pins Zbyszko with the Bulldog after the bout. Bobby Eaton interferes, hitting the Alabama Jam on Rhodes, and Zbyszko hits him with a brainbuster following the match. Heat building on Dustin Rhodes pretty vociferously, of course, the son of the American Dream, and kind of just trying to get him over with the WCW fans as kind of the underdog who hasn't really been, who's kind of been bullied and picked on a little bit. That seems to work, as the fans do eventually support good old Dustin Rhodes on a continual basis. And of course, to think that Dustin's around all these years later is kind of a big thing too. The Dangerous Alliance storyline persists. Anderson and Steamboat in this foray have a nice exchange. Anderson coming out ahead when it's fisticuffs. Steamboat coming out ahead when there is a certain level of wrestling acumen, back kick and chops and all of that. Then we see in there with Dustin Rhodes. Kind of interesting to see that Rude is going to become the leader of the Dangerous Alliance even more so in 1992, and he remained in a strong place there. Dustin Rhodes up on the second rope on the inside. Rude, of course, coming in at the Halloween Havoc 1991 pay-per-view. We're going to kind of go through 91 as we go backwards here. But anyway, Ron Simmons in kind of lost after his losing to Lex Luger at the Halloween Havoc pay-per-view. Kind of just wandering around and with matches. Not that there's anything wrong with this one. Actually, pretty enjoyable six-man to close the show, but nothing necessarily worth writing home about. Rude continues to jump people from behind. You see them setting up the Rude and Steamboat feud over the U.S. title as well. Rude, probably one of the best heels in the business. Vince letting him go was a bit of a shock at the time and earlier in 1991. Anderson sends Steamboat up into the lights for the backdrop. Of course, Steamboat probably the best seller of the bunch. And a lot of brawling on the outside. Bulldog by Rhodes. Bobby Eaton gets distracted, and ultimately Dangerous Alliance grabs a disqualification, and then the Brainbuster, and ultimately Rhodes gets laid out pretty aggressively. We will be back with more.